Welcome back to Viper Bytes. Are you ready for some football? Some Monday Night Football, some Raiders, some Chargers. We are coming at you strong with this one. You got the 3-0 Raiders, the 2-1 Chargers. Maybe first place supremacy here is on the line. We've got the 3-0 Broncos here. We've got the 1-2 Chiefs on the backside. Boy, I bet you did not see that coming at the beginning of the year, that the Broncos and the Raiders would be 3-0, the Chargers would be 2-1, and the Chiefs would be in last place in the AFC West at 1-2. But that's where we are. We also have the Chargers at home as 3-point favorites, and right now that over-under is set at 51.5 points. Now, against the spread, I know a lot of people out there love that part, talk about the spread. The Raiders are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games as the underdog. They've covered in 4 straight Monday Night Football contests, and the Raiders are 7-1 towards the over in their last 8 games. So right now, if we're just based on the Raiders, we're looking at a Raiders easily covering the -3 and going over that 51.5. Now, for the Chargers, on the other hand, when you look at their over-under numbers here, you know, they've been pretty good themselves. In the last little while, they're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. They've covered in 4 straight AFC West games and are 4-1 towards the unders in the last 5 games. So these are things to kind of keep in mind, kind of 2 totally different. Something's got to give. It's going to be the Raiders against the spread, or it's going to be the Chargers against the spread. I don't think it can be both. Now, the Chargers have not won on Monday Night Football since Keenan Allen's rookie season. That dates all the way back to October 14th, 2013. In that contest against the Indianapolis Colts, Keenan Allen had 9 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. Can he repeat that as he makes his way back? Maybe the Chargers get that win. Maybe that they're going to need that Keenan Allen type Herculean effort in the passing game to get it done. Now, he's not alone. We're talking about Mike Williams and Austin Ekeler a little bit later, but it was just kind of fun to throw out what Keenan Allen had done the last time the Chargers won on Monday Night Football. Now, some key injuries going in. Actually, both teams are pretty healthy for as far as fantasy goes and as far as what their real rosters are. The big injury right now to keep an eye on is that of Josh Jacobs. He's kind of questionable with that ankle. More of a game time decision come Monday night. Last couple practices, he's been there. He's looked good from all reports so far. I would expect him to play, but right now you still got to fade him a little bit because we don't know what that situation is going to look like come Monday Night Football. Something may flare up. Who knows? It's Josh Jacobs. Injuries seem to be part of who he is at this point in his career right now. Now, for the Chargers, they're pretty healthy. There's no significant injuries to kind of report at this time. Ding, 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 ding. It's time for Tail of the Tape. Let's break it down here. Offensively speaking, when we look at offensive numbers and what these two teams have been able to do, the Las Vegas Raiders, they are first in total yards per game at 471. They're first in passing yards per game at 379.7. They are 25th in rushing yards per game at 91.3. Points per game, they rank 7th at 30 points per game, and they're tied for 3rd in giveaways with 2. Now, the Chargers, on the other hand, they got a good offense. They are 9th right now in yards per game at 394.7. They are 4th in passing at 307.3. They come in at 26, so just behind the Raiders at 87.3 yards per game on the ground. Points per game, 20th at 22.3, and they are tied for 18th with 4 giveaways. Now, both these defenses, so advantage there as far as offense going, slight edge to the Raiders early on. At least it's not like the Raiders have played bad teams. They played a Miami team that defensively wasn't terrible. They've played a good Ravens team. They played a Steelers team that we expect to be much better than what they showed. But now on the defensive side of the ball, this is where it gets interesting. We're used to seeing the Raiders at the bottom of the pack. We're used to seeing the Chargers mediocre at best. Defensively speaking, as far as total yards per game, the Raiders are 14th so far early on in the season at 355.7 yards yielded per game. As far as the pass game goes, they are 13th in pass defense at 235.3 yards per game and 22nd in rushing yards yielded at 120.3 yards per game. Now, points per game given up, they are giving up 24 points per game, and they are taking the ball away, tied for 17th in the league with 3 takeaways. Defensively speaking for the Chargers, Total yards per game, 17th, 371.7 yards per game. Passing yards per game given up, 201.7. That puts them 7th, which is pretty good. They're going to need that pass defense to step up against the Raiders here. I know everyone's talking about them being a top 5. They are. They're a really strong pass defense. There's no doubt about it. Now, rushing yards per game, they are yielding the 32nd most yards per game, or the most yards per game, depending on which way you want to look at it. They are giving up a whopping 170 yards per game on the ground, and they are giving up the 7th most points per game against at 20, and they've only got 6 takeaways, which is more than the Raiders. That puts them at 4th in the league. Now, we're going to talk about the Raiders and what to kind of expect here from them in this game. I love this here. It's fun to talk Raiders football. It's fun to talk Chargers football. Is there? I don't know. I get excited about this, and hopefully, I think we got the Chargers going with the baby blues there. It's going to be a fantastic match. It's going to be great visual for your eyes. I'm telling you what, right now. Now, Derek Carr has 1,203 passing yards in 2021. Now, going into Week 4, Tom Brady was 2nd at 1,087. At the time I'm recording this, it's Saturday, so nothing's changed yet. But Carr has gone over 350 yards and 2 touchdowns in 7 straight games dating back to last year. And he's averaging 372.4 yards per game. That's, and brackets, quotations, parentheses, whatever you want to call it, 380 plus yards with 2 touchdowns every game this season. That is consistency. As my friend Bob Long goes, Derek Carr is consistent, at least in the last 7 games. Now, Carr is averaging 23.9 fantasy points per game in that span. And it's like I said, I mentioned the Steelers, I mentioned the Dolphins, and I mentioned the Ravens coming in there. But dating back to last year, we're talking about the defenses, the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Colts, all in that span of 7 games as well. Now, last year against the Chargers, didn't go so well for Carr. Let's be honest here. You look at some of these numbers. Thursday Night Football last December, Derek Carr kind of got hurt, went 3 for 5 for 53 yards. And in November, he only had 13 of 23 for 165 yards there, which is not that impressive. But 2 of those completions were for touchdowns there. So that's going back beginning of the season. But you know what, Derek Carr, this is fun. We're talking Derek Carr. We're talking MVP candidate. Well, let's not go there. Now, let's talk about some of the weapons that Derek Carr has going into this match here. First off, let's talk about this run game because there's not a whole lot to really get into because we don't know what it's going to look like. With Josh Jacobs sidelined, Kenyan Drake played 43% of the Raiders snaps in Week 3. Peyton Barber was the big dog. 23 carries, 111 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, 3 catches, 31 yards in the receiving game. He got those 3 catches on 5 targets. Well, Kenyan Drake had 6 targets. He had 3 catches himself for 33 yards. Now, leading up to this Monday night showdown, it appears as though Jacobs is trending in the right direction. But I am fading. Like I mentioned, I'm fading these running backs here because even if Josh Jacobs is go, I'm taking a wait-and-see approach. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if what that toe is going to be. And Peyton Barber realistically only has that value while Josh Jacobs is out. I know Gruden said that, you know what, Peyton Barber's earned this opportunity. If Peyton Barber's the better back, we're going to go with him. Humbug. No, you're not. It's not going on. And Kenyan Drake, you know what? You've basically been replaced by Barber. Yeah, okay, maybe you're going to come into passing situations and stuff, and things may go back to what they were like before Jacobs. But if Jacobs goes down, it's not Drake that benefits. It's Peyton Barber. Now, prior to Week 2, Henry Ruggs had never seen more than 5 targets in any of his 14 career games. Ruggs has now gotten 7 targets in back-to-back games. He's still running routes on just 64% of Carr's dropbacks through the first 5 weeks, which is a little bit of a concerning. And then if you want to take this a little bit deeper here, the Chargers did keep Tyreek Hill in check last week, 5 catches for 56 yards. They did give up a little bit to Travis Kelce, who they'd never given up a 100-yard game to. Kelce got that 100-yard game against the Chargers, but we'll hold off on that until we see how this breaks down here. As far as the other pass catcher there, I didn't really know. Bryan Edwards is now 10 receptions for 210 yards. It's 21 yards per reception while seeing 13 targets in 3 weeks. He leading the team in 89 yards last week, so that's a big up on Bryan Edwards. And then he's kind of pacing the Raiders in wide receivers with routes with 76% of Carr's dropbacks. He has been running the routes on. So it's a bit of an uptick on Henry Ruggs. He's getting more opportunity. in the passing game. We just haven't seen it kind of step up. We're just waiting on it. I think it's going to happen here sooner than later. But when we take a look at, the opportunity's there, but he's still a distant third when it comes to a 10% target share. Ruggs is still getting himself the targets. Waller's still getting himself the targets. But if he keeps running these routes on these dropbacks for Carr, those target numbers will come for him. Now, the Chargers have given up the second fewest fantasy points per game at 24.7 to wide receivers this season. But Edwards has really stepped up this season and has been excelling on contested catches. Taking a little bit deeper look in that, PFF graded him as the highest among all wide receivers when it comes to these contested catches with a 93.1, which put him ahead of the likes of Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore, who respectively ranked second and third in that category. Now, you can't talk pass catchers here without talking about the one and only Zay Jones. No, we're not going to talk Zay Jones. I don't think there's much value for him this week. I don't think you're going to see much value in Willie Snead. But the big dog there when it comes to the Raiders passing game is still Darren Waller. This offense still goes through Darren Waller. And he started off getting peppered in week 1 with 19 targets that led to 105 yards. Since week 1, he's got 14 combined targets and 119 yards in weeks 2 and 3. Now, we're expecting that number to go up. It's got to go back up. Teams are starting to key on him, but it's Waller. Now, Waller led all tight ends in expected fantasy points, which is one of Scott Barrett's favorite kind of metrics that he uses a lot. You can get that over at fantasypoints.com. His 22 expected fantasy points not only leads all tight ends, Kelsey is the next closest with 15.2, which is 6.8 expected points behind per game from where Waller is. But that number, we talked about that 22 expected fantasy points, that puts him fourth amongst wide receivers. Waller also has a 90% route share in those 3 games. So anytime Carr's dropping back, it ain't Waller who's staying in the block. Waller's getting released and he's running those routes. Now, we talked about this offense, the Raiders offense. We see how it ranks. We see how it's number 1 in the league right now in passing. Yeah, we know Derek Carr's got 1,200 yards passing through 3 weeks. Here's how it kind of disperses from there. The Raiders offense is spreading the ball around. 4 pass catchers in the top 30 in receiving yards. Henry Ruggs is 15th with 237. Darren Waller is 18th with 224. Edwards comes in at 24th with 210. And Hunter Renfrow, let's not forget about him. He's got 204 yards. That's 4 receivers over 200 yards through the first 3 weeks. That's impressive no matter what stats you look at. That means the Raiders are doing what they got to do. Now, the Chargers offense, they've been good all year, and so is their quarterback. Justin Herbert is also pushing that ball down the field, averaging 327 yards per game. And he's coming off a huge win against the Chiefs last week, in which he went for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, while Derek Carr is the QB9 as far as fantasy points is concerned, Herbert is right there, right behind him at QB 13, trailing him by only 10 points. The way Herbert is playing, I don't see why he can't continue to support 2 top 12 fantasy wide receivers when it's all said and done. He's been keeping the targets equally divided there amongst both Allen and Mike Williams. And going forward, he's going to need him to stay healthy to keep this up going forward. Both Keenan Allen missed some time last year. Mike Williams, I'm going to knock on wood right now because Mike Williams, he's been balling this year, but his biggest drawback has never been talent. It's about staying healthy and staying on the field. Now, Vegas has given up just 2 touchdowns so far this year, and no quarterback has hit 300-plus yards against them yet. Now, Herbert topped 310 yards with 2 touchdowns in 2 matchups against the Raiders last year. Again, I'm excited. Maybe when we're talking about this passing offense, we know the Miami Dolphins weren't the best going forward. We know the Ravens struggled passing the ball, and surprisingly, the Steelers did as well. So maybe it's some smoke and mirrors as far as this pass defense is concerned for the Raiders, why we haven't seen a 300-yard game, why we haven't seen a multiple touchdown game yet. Now, as we talked how the offense kind of goes through Darren Waller, I really believe that this offense for the Chargers is going through Austin Ekeler. Eckler's snap rate has risen in 3 straight games from 58% to 63% to 74%. Ekeler has 3 carries in the red zone, while guys like Larry Roundtree and Justin Jackson respectively have 3 and 2 carries in the red zone. After not having a single reception in week 1, Ekeler now has 15 receptions for 113 yards in the last 2 weeks. Added in those 35 carries for another 166 yards. That puts him at the RB5 right now in PPR as for running backs. Ekeler has topped 105 plus scrimmage yards in each of the last 2 games. Keenan Allen, we know we got pass catchers here. The first we're going to talk about is Keenan Allen here, who was 12th in PPR scoring with 52.8 fantasy points on the strength of 21 receptions on 33 targets. He is second behind Packers wide receiver Devontae Adams and two ahead of teammate Mike Williams when we're talking about those targets here right now. Allen also ranks 10th in receiving yards at 258 through 3 games, but he could be higher in fantasy point rankings if he could get some love in the end zone. We talked about Jacoby Myers and how he needs to get in the end zone to kind of boost those numbers. It's same for Keenan Allen so far through 3 games. He's 12th in fantasy points, but I think he's only found the end zone 1 time this year. Now, the one thing we can look at here is Allen is lined up against Nate Hobbs in the slot. 9 times out of 10, I would say that this is advantage Keenan Allen, and I'm probably going to lean Keenan Allen in this matchup again here as well. But Hobbs is doing very good this year. He's giving a very little to opposing slots. That said, a lot of us are considering what the work that Trevon Diggs is doing in the slot this year as the best there is in the league right now, and Keenan Allen basically had his way with him back in week 1. So, let's go with the advantage here for Keenan Allen, but Nate Hobbs, he's been playing well, so let's give him a little bit of respect here as well. Now, the other wide receiver, Mike Williams, currently wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game at 25.2. The biggest change in 2021 is Williams' role. 21 of his 31 targets have traveled 10 or fewer yards in the air. He was kind of that big play threat in the past. Now they're using him in the intermediate routes as well, which is fantastic for him. Last year, just 44% of his targets, 44%, were in that same 10 or fewer yards downfield. 68 this year. Williams already has 5 end zone targets, which is the second most in the league. And then a little bit further to last year, he had 9 targets and a huge win. Or last week, 9 targets and a huge win against the Chiefs. Posted 7 receptions, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is getting in the end zone. Whatever Keenan Allen's not doing in the end zone, Mike Williams certainly is to this point. His 33.2 fantasy points were the second best of his career last week and easily his best game since 2018. Now, it's just that Williams isn't exclusively that deep threat anymore. Like we mentioned those targets, he's getting that fewer yards, that A-dot's coming down considerably. And now this week, he's going to travel. He's going to be shadowed here a little bit by Casey Hayward. So your reward for having success is you get PFF's 3rd-rated cover corner in Casey Hayward. And this is a matchup I can't wait to watch because it's a revenge game for Casey Hayward. So take a look at that one a little bit deeper. That's going to be fun to watch. Now at tight end, we talked about Darren Waller and what good he's doing here and what good's coming from his talent a little bit later. Jared Cook has seen better days. He is now the 4th option in this offense behind Allen, behind Ekeler, behind Mike Williams. He has still seen 16 targets in 3 games, 10 receptions, 111 yards. But then again, the next receiving option in the pecking order has been Jalen Guyton, who has 3 receptions on 8 targets. I really don't see Jared Cook paying off, but you know what? In a weird way, this is another revenge game. Oh, and by the way, going back to Mike Williams, shout out to Sandro. It's a birthday game. So you can expect Mike Williams to ball out for sure. Now, we talked about the wide receivers. We talked about the running backs. We talked about the tight ends. We give you a little bit of a bit and pieces there about this offenses and defenses and that tail of the tape. This is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm excited about it. Things always get wild in the AFC West. The Chargers, they're coming off that big game over the Chiefs last week, which they beat them. By the way, they beat them in week 17 last year as well. And you know what? The Raiders beat the Chiefs last year as well, too. So, you know what? We talk about the AFC. Nothing is a given. It truly is the wild, wild West. Now, when we take a look at this, the Chargers have 2 top 12 wide receivers in Allen and Robinson. The Raiders have 4 pass catchers in the top 30 in receiving yards. The Chargers have an underrated defense, while the Raiders have the number 1 passing offense heading into week 4. It wouldn't surprise me for this game to hit the over. And it also doesn't surprise me if this game hits overtime. 2 of the 3 games this year for the Raiders have gone to overtime. So bold prediction. Let's go. Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, both throw for over 350 yards. They both have 2 touchdowns, and the Raiders win in overtime, 30-27, which hits the over as well. Now, let's talk starts and sits here. Obviously, with the Chargers, you're starting Herbert. You're going to get him as a QB1. He's already borderline QB1 at QB13 overall in the season. Austin Ekeler, running back 5, start him. Mike Williams, wide receiver 2, you start him. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 12, you start him. Those are no-brainers. And really, I think that's all you can start with comfort there. With the Chargers, I wouldn't touch Jared Cook even in a revenge game of sorts. Now, for the Raiders, a little more tricky. Because of how balanced this offense is, you can feel comfortable starting Derek Carr. I think he's going to put up QB 10 this week. I think he's going to classify into that QB1 category. You start Darren Waller. You do it no matter what. He's one of those guys you guarantee you start each and every week. And then I think if you're looking at wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flex options, I would add Henry Ruggs, Edwards, and Renfro all into that flex category. I think they're all going to see up to 7 targets this week. I think they're all going to hit 7 targets for at least 75 type yards, somewhere in that ballpark. And I made a bold prediction back on Wednesday there that both Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards would go over 100 yards and have a touchdown each in this matchup. I think it's doable. I think it would happen. It's bold, but bold is beautiful, if you know what I'm saying. And as far as the running back position goes, here's how I see it. If we know that Josh Jacobs is he's good to go, you're going to probably start Josh Jacobs. However, with the recent thing coming out, yeah, he's been looking good in practice. We feel good about his opportunities. He's still a game-time decision. And for that reason, I'm out. I'm fading Josh Jacobs this week. And you know what? I cannot start Peyton Barber this week either until I know Josh Jacobs is for sure out of the lineup. If I have Josh Jacobs and I have Peyton Barber, boy, I'm feeling a lot better about my opportunity. I'm feeling comfortable starting him because this Chargers run defense is not very good. So if you've got Josh Jacobs handcuffed with Peyton Barber, you're lucky enough to do so. You're feeling good. You're going to start one of them in this matchup. You're going to feel comfortable. But Kenyan Drake, I'm sorry, I'm not playing you no matter what. You're a complete fade. If I had to make a decision right now, though, with my lineup, I had one of Drake or Barber or Jacobs. I'm not starting any one of them this week because I just don't feel comfortable with that. Now, that said, this is the Viper Bytes. This is the Monday Night Football preview show. You caught us on Sunday night. We talked about that. We see it Thursday night. Make sure you're tuning in next Wednesday for the Week 5 Dynasty Vipers Vipercast week preview show. You know, Tara, Kelvin, Major, and myself, we're bringing it at you there each and every week. We're powered by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Make sure you head over to fantasypoints.com. Use promo code 21Vipers10. Get 10% off the subscription. I'm bringing my numbers, my facts, and everything. They're coming from my good friends there over at Fantasy Points. And they've got some nice, cool tools there where you can insert your rosters from MFL, Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, whatever your format is or whatever your leagues are set at. You can pump that right into the system, and they'll tell you who's available on the waiver wire, which is a huge help there, especially when you're in as many leagues as I am. And I know a lot of you that are watching this are in many leagues yourselves. With that all said, though, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate your time. And you know what? Monday Night Football, this is the game of the week, in my opinion. I know there's some other games that people are more excited about, but I think this is going to be the most exciting one. We'll see you on Wednesday.